And I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a jam-packed evening, and we want to first welcome you to the Berkeley Democratic Club. We're thrilled to have you here. Tonight, we'll be discussing mayor and council races, and we'll have brief statements for the district attorney recall by both proponents and opponents. And for the first time, we're providing a voter education guide with our distinguished candidates and proponents and opponents of ballot measures, and this will allow you to read their perspectives directly. Please check the chat for the link to this questionnaire, which I'll send shortly. We also have some videos that you can find embedded in the questionnaire and on our YouTube at Berkeley Democratic Club. We hope you find it valuable. Our board has been working hard to provide you with all the information you need to make an informed decision at the polls, and we welcome your input, and we're once again very happy that you're here. So the format for this evening is each mayoral and council candidate will have an opener, a closer, general platform question, and an opportunity to answer a couple questions from the board and then the membership. We will also hear statements from Protect the Win, which is opposing the recall of the district attorney, and we will also hear statements from the recall proponents Save Alameda for Everyone. If you appreciate the work that we've done for voter education, we'd be very grateful for any joining of our club or donation to support your local Democratic club. And in closing, if you are an active member of the Berkeley Democratic Club, something we encourage everyone to become, you will receive an email with your ballot after the forum. All right, on that note, let's begin. We're going to start with Orrin moderating the mayoral candidate session. So please promote our mayoral candidates and take it away, Orrin.
Thank you to all of the mayoral candidates who are joining us this evening for this forum. The format for this session will be an introduction, then a few questions, possibly a question from the audience if there's time. And as usual with these things, we will give the questions to the candidates in a rotating order, so that if you get the question first on the first question, you'll get it second or third on the next one. We're asking you to keep your answers within a limited amount of time for everyone's benefit. I will be timing, and when you see me do this, that's your signal to wrap things up. So we will start with asking each of the candidates to take a minute and introduce yourself and explain why you were running for mayor. So we'll start this session with Adina, then Sophie, and then Kate.
Thank you, Orrin, and thank you so much to the BDC for having me. I know how difficult it is to plan these candidate forums. I'm running for mayor because it's time for a reset at City Hall. We've had 2 city council members leave city council. We've had our city manager quit this year. And while our city electeds are fighting each other, it's preventing us from focusing on our problems. I'm someone who's going to bring a fresh perspective, someone who knows that it's important that we build across differences and find compromise so that we can move forward on these important issues. I'm focused on housing and homelessness, public safety and infrastructure. I look forward to your questions this evening. I am endorsed by State Senate Nancy Skinner, State Assembly Member Buffy Wicks, 3 city council members, and many other members of our community. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And now Sophie Hahn, same question.
Thank you. I love Berkeley, and I am really excited about our future. As mayor, I will amplify our leadership on social justice and the environment, bring back our downtown and shopping districts, and continue our incredible work rehousing our homeless neighbors. I grew up in Berkeley and raised my family just blocks from my childhood home. A graduate of Berkeley High and UC Berkeley, I am a persistent optimist, steeped in Berkeley values and focused on delivering results. Being mayor of Berkeley isn't for the untested and not for the faint of heart. I have been devoted to Berkeley my entire life, and I will never, ever quit on this community. On the city council where I still serve, I co-authored a plan that has reduced unsheltered homelessness by a stunning 45%, wrote internationally acclaimed legislation to combat plastics, funded over 1,000 affordable homes, brought 100% renewable energy to every Berkeley customer, and led the rematriation of the West Berkeley shell mound to the Ohlone people. As mayor, I am committed to filling empty storefronts, bringing back movies and live performance, revitalizing
please,
our
Sophie.
sorely neglected downtown. Was that 2 minutes?
1 minute. Sorry, it was
Ah,
1
you
minute.
guys had said 2 minutes, so I was prepared for that.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Thank you. And now Kate Harrison, introduction and why you're running for mayor.
And thank you to the entire Berkeley Democratic Club. I'm running for mayor to create a climate forward, affordable city with excellent amenities and to protect people's rights. We can't protect the earth and build a green economy at the same time. My priorities are climate equity, creating an affordable, transit-rich city, and effective public health and safety programs. I will create safe streets for our kids and ourselves, provide effective, sustainable homeless and health programs, and enshrine economic and racial equity. District 4, which I represented for 7 years on council, is the most urban part of the city, with an incredible variety of housing types, people, businesses, and modes of transportation. I have a unique vantage point on how to create a livable city for all. But being mayor is not just about big programs, it's about the daily work of serving our community. For example, by demanding equity in the use of our resources in paving our roads, by protecting housing and reducing blight, as I did with Councilmember Drosty and through the vacancy tax, and by bringing homeless people and RVs safely and cost-effectively off our streets. I look forward to serving you both in the large policy areas and in the small daily areas that affect everyone's lives in Berkeley. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. The next question will give 3 minutes to each of the candidates, starting with Sophie Hahn, then Kate Harrison, then Adina Ishii. So this question is for all of the candidates to please tell us about the top issues that you will focus on as mayor. Sophie Hahn.
Thank you very much. The top issues I want to focus on are housing affordability, which drives a lot of other challenges in our city, including homelessness, food insecurity, and a lot of other challenges. The second is to transform our city so that people can get out of their cars and transition to walking, biking, and taking public transit. And the third big priority of mine is to save Alta Bates Hospital and ensure the long-term health and well-being of the people of Berkeley. So going back to affordable housing, I am very proud to have been the co-author and co-chair of the campaign to pass Measures O&P, which have provided the largest amount of money in the city's history for affordable housing and to rehouse the homeless. Those dollars are directly responsible for our rehousing more than 1,500 people, reducing homelessness by 45%, and opening doors to more than 1,000 affordable homes. I've been the council's foremost champion also for land trust and cooperative housing. That is a small sites program where we actually buy existing buildings. I'm committed to maximizing the amount of affordable housing we can have in our market rate developments while maintaining feasibility so that we get more housing overall. And, you know, basically addressing the housing crisis in a very holistic way. I'm also very interested in looking at how we can support more ownership housing as well, increasing first-time homebuyer assistance, finding ways to help homeowners subdivide and add ADUs so we can have that gentle density throughout the city and in the neighborhoods, and really a very comprehensive and holistic approach to housing, but with a very strong emphasis on housing affordability. Transforming our city. Our cities were designed for cars. Our entire country was designed for cars. It is very difficult when people are literally addicted to automobiles, and the entire landscape of our city and country is a landscape for cars, to get people to get out of their cars. So I want to develop realistic plans, not just by mode, a bike plan and a pedestrian plan, but actually plans that focus on people. There's different ages, there's different life stages, abilities, there's different geographies. Some people live in high heels, some people live in areas that are flatter. We need to create a plan that is people-centric, not shaming, and helps folks figure out how to get out of their cars, or we're never going to meet our climate goals.
Thank you, Sophie Hahn. Next up, Kate Harrison, 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. My priority goals are somewhat similar, but I have a different approach to them. We need to build housing, but we have to do it through the entire city. We have to enshrine fair housing throughout all of Berkeley and not just concentrate in the lower income areas of town, which has been true to date. We also need to make sure that housing is integrated well with parks and recreation facilities, with retail, with things that make for a livable city. We can do this. We can build a lot of housing and still create the amenities that make this a city we want to live in. I want to make sure we become more like a major city and not just a suburb with housing. I want to make sure we have the things that make cities great. I love cities, and I live downtown where I have lived for over 20 years. I enjoy a lifestyle of walking and biking and taking transit. It is a lifestyle that should be available to everyone, but it isn't an automatic. We need to provide, for example, more safe streets for kids and for us. We need to provide more transitability. One area that I'm looking at is a free transit pilot, which I introduced in the last term. We need to make sure that our roads are safe for everyone, including pedestrians, that our sidewalks work for everyone. I support Measure FF, the Safe Streets measure, because it provides a lot more money for these amenities, as well as ensuring that we have a guide group that is chosen through their expertise rather than randomly among the public. And it also charges more to businesses, which I'm in favor of, just like our library tax. Also, I'd like to see us really focus more on relieving police of the thousands of things that we give them to do every day. This does not mean reducing our police force. We can leave the force the exact same size it is, but we have to focus on finding alternatives to police dealing with noisy parties, dealing with mental health crises, dealing with abandoned vehicles. We ask them to do absolutely everything. This is one reason it's hard to attract police. They have too many disparate jobs. We need to make sure they can concentrate on what they are best at, and we can hire people that can do these other functions. We've seen some effort to do that in the city. I am disappointed that it took years to fund violence prevention for youth, when in fact we had the money available and simply the bureaucracy got in the way. And we had actually the loss of 2 Latino youth at a high school party because of that. I'm disappointed we don't focus more on the mental health of youth, which I did at our high school by creating Berkeley High's mental health system. I am disappointed that we don't deal more with everyday nuisances through someone other than our police. So again, they can focus. We can do this. We can use our resources effectively and have a safe city for everyone and a healthy city for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate Harrison. Adina Ishii.
Yes. So for the top 3 issues I mentioned earlier, I'm focused on housing and homelessness, public safety, and also infrastructure. I want to talk a little bit about my ideas for these topics and also a little bit about my experience working on those issues, because I think that's incredibly important to understand the connection between, why I believe in these issues, why I want to focus on them, and what my experience is. So when it comes to housing, I think that we need to build affordable housing in every Berkeley neighborhood. I know when it comes to homelessness that I want to make sure that our shelters are a safer and more welcoming alternative to living on the street. Just recently, we had someone who was shot and killed in one of our shelters, and that's not acceptable. I also want to make sure that we have mental health support for those who need it in our city. We have something called the Specialized Care Unit, which is a non-law enforcement response, but it's not currently running 24/7. We need to make sure we hire enough people to get the Specialized Care Unit running 24/7, because unfortunately, mental health crises don't happen on a schedule. When it comes to public safety, I know that we need to make sure we're investing in mental health, social services, youth programming, and also making sure that our police and fire have the appropriate resources necessary to keep us safe. And to say a little bit more about that, I've actually done a ride along with our fire department for 10 hours, our police department. Also, I've done a sit along with our dispatch. I think that was incredibly important for me, because it's important to understand not only just the policy level of things, but how it actually is implemented and what it looks like on the ground level. And when it comes to infrastructure, I want to make sure that our streets, sidewalks, and transportation systems are safe and accessible. To give you a little bit more about my experience on these topics, with housing, I was very involved with Measures O and P as well, but I knocked doors. I helped create forums with the mayor. I was president of the League of Women Voters at the time, our youngest and first woman of color in 107 years. So I've done work on this issue. Unfortunately, I'm someone who's also experienced housing insecurity. And I know that even though we have policies in our city, if we don't implement them, then we're not going to be able to serve the people who need the most support. When it comes to public safety, I've worked in 2 different district attorney's offices, one in the Alameda County Human Trafficking Unit. And unfortunately, I've also been a survivor of domestic violence and also a mugging in my neighborhood in South Berkeley, just a block away from where I was living at the time. And when it comes to infrastructure, I was unfortunately hit by a car on my bicycle. And, although I've had all these negative experiences in this city, it has given me so much to advocate for, because I understand what it looks like when these issues are impacting our everyday lives. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you to the 3 of you for those answers. Just a reminder to the audience participants or audience viewers and listeners that at the bottom of the Zoom screen, or however you're watching it, you can find a Q&A button. And if you have questions for the candidates and we have time at the end of this session, you can put them there. Okay, next question is, please take 2 minutes and tell us what distinguishes you from your opponents, from the other candidates. And we'll go this time in order: Kate Harrison, Adina Ishii, and Sophie Hahn. Kate, please.
Yes. I'm distinguishing the other candidates by the incredible breadth of my government experience and my political experience. I chaired the San Francisco Infrastructure Commission that dealt with infrastructure along the San Francisco waterfront after the freeway collapsed during the Loma Prieta earthquake. That meant that I had to raise and coordinate millions of dollars to make sure that we created the beautiful waterfront we see today and the new transit improvements there. I worked for the court system, where I oversaw the $1 billion state court budget and all of the courts in California in all of their non-legal programs, where they interact with people in family court, in small claims court, in all of the areas that don't involve judges, but are where the real work of equity and justice occur in our court system. On the council, I wrote and passed several critical ballot measures. For example, I passed the measure to enhance our civilian oversight of the police. It passed with over 85% of Berkeley voters. I wrote and passed the vacancy tax, working with my colleagues and tenant advocates and those concerned about blight and vacancy in our city. The other council member that is on with us tonight has had some successes in office, but I would say that the measures that she put forward, like Measure L, which did not pass and drove a wedge between many of our citizens that have now led to 2 distinct ballot measures dealing with infrastructure, is a problem. We cannot do work top down. It is important to have someone in this office that works with the entire community. We need somebody who can cooperate with the staff and understand the community. Sometimes we disagree on policy, and that's okay. We do not need to have complete agreement on the answers, but we do have to have an ability to talk about the issues. Masking differences does not result in a happy city. It simply results in masking differences. I'm looking forward to working with all of you to create solutions that work, such as Measure FF. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate Harrison. Next up, Adina Ishii.
Yes, hi. Thanks for that question. Something that I mentioned earlier is my lived experience. And again, I think that this is something that's very valuable in understanding how issues look in our city. But I also want to talk a little bit more about my nonpartisan background. As I mentioned, I was president of the League of Women Voters, and I've been involved in nonpartisan political work for over a decade here in this city. And I think that's important because I am focused on finding compromise and bringing people together around common sense solutions. And that's essential in our city. We need to be able to compromise and to move things forward and listen to people. The other way that I would say that we are different is that I have worked across the entire city, not just been focused on my particular council district. My work with the League of Women Voters was across the entire city and with neighboring cities. I also served as vice president of the California State League of Women Voters. And so I understand the importance of being able to work across jurisdictions. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you. Sophie Hahn.
Well, thank you. Where to begin? First of all, I am rooted in reality. There is no other council member in this forum or in this race. I am the only council member running for mayor, and it is important to be rooted in reality when you're running for mayor. Second, deep roots. I grew up in Berkeley, raised my own family here. I have done virtually every life stage here. I've been a child. I graduated from Berkeley High. I'm a graduate of UC Berkeley. I've raised children. I'm helping my parents age in place. So I have, a lifetime PTA, library board, Planned Parenthood board, Sierra Club board. There is no one who has roots as deep as I have in Berkeley. Third is experience. My professional experience. I've been a small business owner. I'm an attorney. I work for a big international organization. Community experience. I've served on so many boards, I don't have time to tell you about it, but a volunteer, community member, commissioner across the board. My experience on the city council, over 600 pieces of legislation, huge and impactful change for Berkeley. It's making a difference. And personal experience. Adina likes to share some of the hardships she's had. I don't like to live in that space, but if it's really relevant, I've been the victim of a heinous violent crime in Berkeley. I've been hit by cars several times. I don't really think that's relevant. I don't talk about it, but if people really care that you've actually also had some hardship in your life, I'm here to tell you that I've had that as well. Trust of colleagues. No one has the endorsements that I have. I am enthusiastically endorsed by the mayor, the vice mayor, 4 council members, Bartlett, Taplin, Humbert, Trega, Khadijah Brown, Laura Babbitt, Mike Chang, Malia Cohen, Fiona Ma, Betty Lee, Tony Thurman, and last but not least, I'm not a quitter, and I will never, ever quit on Berkeley.
Thank you. Last question before we get to audience questions, which are coming in. Please take 2 minutes to tell us how you plan on working collaboratively, not only with colleagues, but also city staff. What is your leadership style? Again, 2 minutes. We'll start with Adina Ishii, then Sophie Hahn, then Kate Harrison.
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to say that first and foremost, that my leadership style is values oriented. On our campaign, I'm very proud that we have come up with values and group agreements in the way that we want to treat each other with respect. And I know that for me, community is important, inclusivity and belonging, also joy. I think that so much of politics these days have become so negative and angry and all about fighting, and really there's so much opportunity for positivity that I think that would make it easier for more people to get involved in politics. And that's what I want to see. I want a city that feels engaged and is excited about going to a city council meeting and not stressed about it. I also another thing that we also value is growth mindset and looking at things in terms of what is possible as opposed to being only critical of an issue. And I also really focus on encouraging the next generation. I think that it's so important that we are not only working on the problems of today, but that we're thinking about the future and that we are preparing our next generation for those opportunities. I also think it's important that we don't trivialize people's experiences because so many folks out there have had experiences. And I do want to keep this very positive in this race. I think it's wonderful that we are in a ranked choice voting election. And I want to see us, run this race, the rest of it all the way through in a positive way. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Kate Harrison. Sorry, Sophie Hahn is next up.
Okay, great. Turn my thing on and off.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just spent several hours today at the city's all-staff event at Cedar Rose Park. I was the only council member who showed up for that. I was greeted by people from every department and spent hours speaking with and listening to people. I have and will continue to visit every single department in our city every year and go to all the different sites where we provide services and where people work. I have very strong relationships with people throughout the city from top to bottom. I have a very strong relationship with our new city manager who I helped bring to the city, and I am looking forward to a very collaborative relationship. I wrote and passed a piece of legislation elevating public comment from our labor unions in the city, showing my respect to them as partners. And so there's a lot of things I've done and will continue to do to work collaboratively with staff. Council. The council would like me to be their mayor. I am endorsed by a super majority of the city council, more council member endorsements than any mayoral candidate in an open seat that I've seen in recent history of the city of Berkeley. I am, and former council member Drosty can attest that I am the person who organizes donut time, coffee time, brunches, always trying to bring the council together. Yes, we disagree sometimes on issues, but we have to come together and connect around our common love for the city, talking about our kids or our passions or the things we like to do in our time off. And I'm very, very committed to continuing to build those bridges and those relationships. I also really, I do not agree with anyone who would say that we have some kind of a contentious city council. We did have 2 council members who, for their own personal reasons, were not able to continue to serve and walked away. But we have a harmonious council where people get along and they disagree politely, and that is the kind of council I will continue to run.
Thank you. Now we have time for.
Warren, you didn't let me answer this question. You remember?
Oh, I'm
called
sorry.
Me, and then you accidentally called to me, and then you went to Sophie appropriately.
I've done that
That's fine.
before.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
It's so confusing running these meetings. I really appreciate it. I have an extremely collaborative working relationship with staff. I've supervised over 100 people at these California Judicial Council, and people throughout my career have written testimonials to my working style. With the staff of the city of Berkeley, I've worked through the committees, for example, the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee with our former Public Works Director on many issues to make sure that, one, we have the resources we need to make it a reality. A lot of people write a lot of legislation and throw it over the transom and say to the city manager, good luck. I hope you can implement this. I don't do that. And it's very similar to Mayor Ardigan's style. I write actual legislation with the budget implications and the implementation implications intact. Because until you know those things, you don't know if this legislation is going to work. And it's something I admire also about Councilmember Droste. I understand the barriers that staff face because I was a staff person for a city for 20 years. I know how cities work. I know the kind of issues that they come up against. I also want to say something about working with youth. Many of my initiatives come from listening to other people. I'm not the smartest person in the room. For example, youth from CalPERG on campus came to me and said, do you understand that our compost bags, supposed compost bags in the back of grocery stores are not being composted? They're actually being thrown in the trash. We changed that by working with Berkeley Bowl, the Public Works Department, County Stop Waste, and these youth to make sure we have real compostable bags. High school students, did you know we don't have an effective high school mental health system? After a child committed suicide, they had nowhere to go. I found the resources and I fixed that. People at the community college asked that we put youth on our climate commission because after all, it's their future. So in all these ways, I'm continually working with youth. My office was staffed by the same chief of staff for the entire 7 years that I was there, unlike my colleague who had much staff turnover in her office. Collaboration is my number one thing, but I don't always have to agree with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we are going to do one audience question. We had 3, and the one that we're going to pick is about Alta Bates. I think this is broadly understood in the city to be a serious problem that Alta Bates is going away in 5 years. I think it's 2029. And so the question is to all 3 mayoral candidates, what do you think can be done to address losing the only ER in the city, the only emergency room? And we'll start with Sophie, and then Kate, and then Adina. 1 minute.
Well, thank you for asking because I'm already working on this. And again, I just have to clarify that I'm the only council member in this race. So I am systematically reaching out to and meeting with every single hospital operator in Northern California to see if there's somebody who might be willing to operate this or another hospital here in Berkeley. That is the only way we're going to have a full service acute and emergency care hospital. I also have met with Sutter numerous times, and every time I meet with them, I say the same thing. What do you need to stay in Berkeley? Do you need money? We can help. We can do bond financing. We can help finance the retrofit that you need for Alta Bates. Do you need land use issue? Do you need zoning help? What do you need that our city can provide to keep you in Berkeley? And I can tell you that I have never, ever, ever gotten an answer from them. So that is why I am now already out talking with hospital operators to see, is there another operator that we can bring into Berkeley? And I will offer them the very same thing that I have repeatedly offered to Sutter. What do you need to establish and maintain a full service acute and emergency care hospital in Berkeley? This is an imperative for our health, but it is also an economic imperative because the hospital is a big driver of our economy. So for many, many reasons, I am laser focused on this. It is one of my top priorities for Berkeley. We must secure the health of the people of Berkeley. I care about the health of everyone all the way up to Vallejo, who will have a hospital desert even more of a hospital desert when Alta Bates closes. And I care about the impact to the people who work in this industry and to our economics and to the economy of our city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We actually went 2 minutes there. So in the interest of fairness, the other candidates can take 2 minutes on that answer. Next up, Kate Harrison.
Yeah, thank you. Here I will reflect on my personal experience. My mother had a heart attack in my car while I was driving on Telegraph, and she only survived that because Alta Bates existed. Had that not been there, she would have died in my car. And we also know that our firefighters cannot afford to be transporting people all the way to Oakland, because when they're doing that, someone else will die or will be seriously injured. I hear the call for finding another hospital operator, but frankly, this is about greed in the private hospital industry. We cannot be offering them all the resources in the world. I believe we need to, one, zone the area for a hospital district so that if Alta Bates leaves, the only other use of the property is hospital and not housing. Two, we need to work with the nurses. I don't need to talk so much with hospital administrators. I need to talk to the people that actually do the work. And if my colleague, Councilmember Hahn, had so many ideas, she started chairing this committee 7 years ago when we were first in office about Alta Bates, and nothing has happened. I'm not going to offer you vague promises. I don't have all the answers, and I'm not going to wait till I get elected either. I am speaking with nurses today, who are the people that should be driving this system. Finally, this hospital has received money for seismic. Offering them more funding is not the answer. We need a public hospital district. We can do this. It's been done throughout America. It's an effective model. We can use the ACA to help fund it, and we should be looking to do something completely different. Finally, I want to say it's not just the emergency room. In this experience with my mother, the minute she was stabilized, they sent her to Oakland because all the surrounding medical services, not just the economic engine, but the rest of the medical services that support that hospital are disappearing, both in the hospital, the doctor's offices around there. We're going to end up in a health desert, not just an ER desert. We're not going to have the health services that exist. So we have to demand single payer healthcare, but while we're waiting for that, we need to be looking at a public hospital and zoning this so when they leave, we can find another operator, and there is no other choice. Thank you.
Thanks for this question. Yes, this is very important, and I understand same as the other two, as we've just been talking about. We need to make sure we have something there that is going to be able to serve the health needs of the community. I agree that there are a lot of structural issues, systemic issues that exist that make the problems of hospitals the way they are. Having hospitals that are, private means that they are focused on profit, as former council member Harrison has said. And I do think it is important that we find another operator that's willing to be in that space. And at the same time, I don't think we should be bending over backwards to be able to put something there if it's not going to be able to be sustainable. I don't want to put another operator there who's going to potentially leave again and just to have that process go over and over. I think that it's possible. We can look and see in what else is being offered in the area, what we will be missing specifically by losing Alta Bates. And the other thing I want to say is, I know that we have already as a city paid to do a study on this issue, and then we again paid for another study on this issue. And I want us to stop paying for studies on this issue. I think that that is not a good use of our funds, and we need to make sure that we are moving that process forward. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Okay. We have just a few minutes left in the schedule, and so now we have time for, well, I'm getting asked to ask one more question from the audience. This one is about Hopkins, the topic that everyone has strong feelings about. There was a plan for improved bike pedestrian infrastructure for Hopkins that went through an established public process, but got stymied at the 11th hour and didn't happen. And now, as I think was already mentioned, that the plan for reconfiguring, repaving Hopkins is stuck in limbo. What can we do to fix the process that led to this mess up, and how can we make these projects like this one move forward in the future? And I think the order this time will be Kate, then Adina, then Sophie. And
Right.
if you can get the answers into 1 minute, that would be helpful.
I will do my best. I really consider this a tale of two streets. We have Milvia in my district, which successfully has a bike lane that takes children to all of the schools in the area. It did disrupt some businesses, but I, for a year, met with those businesses and found a way to accommodate their loading and unloading needs. We now have Hopkins, which is neither paved nor does it have safety improvements. I consider this a massive failure of leadership, and it is not adequate to blame staff. This buck stops with us with these projects. We need to take the responsibility for fixing this situation. We had sent Hopkins to the committee that I was on in December before the council, other than me, voted to cancel all of the committee hearings at the council level because the city manager indicated she could not support these committees. So Hopkins was left in abeyance. And again, we neither have a paved road now, nor do we have safety improvements. Because of my experience in infrastructure, I just have to demand that whenever we touch a road, we make it better. It's like touching your house and replacing your roof and not doing the gutters. It does not make sense. We should always make our infrastructure better. Does that always mean a bike lane? No, but it always means safety improvements. And frankly, this project, when Councilmember Hahn tried to revive it by saying just pave it, did not have the money for any safety improvements or environmental improvements. So it was important it went back to this committee, and then it was left in abeyance. That's why we're in the situation we are in today, failed leadership.
Thank you. Adina.
Yeah, I really appreciate this question. I think that this is one of the most heartbreaking issues in our city because it's something that should have been fairly simple. And instead, now we have lawn signs for either sides of this issue, and it's really tearing our community apart. It's quite shocking given that we have so many other issues that are so important in the city that we have had to spend so much time talking about this. And the question was about trusting in process. How can you trust that I, as your mayor, would be able to put in place a process and follow through on and make sure that it's transparent. And I'll say that again, I come back to my experience with the League of Women Voters. You know, we definitely believe in process, and once a process has been gone through and a decision has been made, then you move forward with that process. That is how it works. That's the whole point of putting a process in place in the first place. And I know that there were some lessons learned in terms of making sure that the fire department was involved earlier in the process, but I will say that one of the biggest issues here that I have seen is that there's a lot of misinformation that's going around about this project in particular. And, you know, we need to go back to our community values, making sure that this project is safe. And I have to say that one of the things that really helped me understand this project was spending an hour with Planning Commissioner Karen Perolek. Oh, I might be getting her commissioner title wrong, but you know, she was incredibly helpful in helping me understand the project and the details and why we need to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I appreciate Adina bringing up the question of misinformation. And I just want to say very clearly that the reason why Hopkins is not paved is because of Kate Harrison. She was the deciding vote to not pave Hopkins Street, not because she was going to be around to put some infrastructure in, because she quit and is not available to do any work for the city, let alone this work. But because out of spite for the neighborhood. And so it's really incredible. And again, I go back to the reality-based statement that I made before. This is why Hopkins is not even paved. And by the way, it was on the paving plan for almost 10 years. So let's talk a little bit about so much to say. I'm the one who wrote the referral for this project, and it was not a bike project. It was a safety and placemaking project with many, many elements. Unfortunately, it was launched during the pandemic, and after the first somewhat disastrous public meeting that was by Zoom, I asked the consultants why they thought you could only have parking and no bike lanes, or only bike lanes and no parking. I said I thought there was room for both. You know what they said? They didn't measure the street. So that's how that project began, and it went downhill from there. I voted yes on that project, and no one is more disappointed than me that we weren't able to get it done. And I just want to say that I think I had said before that I'm going to have to leave very soon, so I'm not sure what the plan is for another question, but we do have another forum on campus. I see that Kate Harrison is already on campus. I'm assuming Adina and I both need to get there.
Okay, we have time now for closing statements from each candidate, 1 minute each, starting with Adina.
Yeah, so as I said at the beginning of this forum, the reason that I'm running is because we need a reset. And, you know, when I talk about our city leaders fighting each other, I feel like my point has been proven in this forum, with my opponents placing blame and fighting each other. You know, I mentioned earlier that I have the support from State Senator Nancy Skinner and Assemblymember Buffy Wicks. And what they talked about is their belief in my leadership and my ability as a pragmatic, progressive person to move things forward and not focus on the politics, but focus on the issues. And so when as I end today, I'm going to remind you all that I'm focused on housing and homelessness, public safety and infrastructure. I know that we can build compromise and have people get around common sense solutions. So I hope to have your support this evening, and thank you very much for having me. You can read more about my website. I hope you'll support me. My website is adinaishi.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Over to Sophie.
Well, thank you. This race is not about which candidate cares most about one issue or another, because we're all good Democrats, or about who had unfortunate experiences. Probably all of us have had those as well. It's about which candidate is ready to be mayor of an ambitious, high-profile, and complex city. I joined the council after decades of service on boards of Sierra Club, Planned Parenthood, the Library Foundation, Zoning Board, King PTA, and numerous others. I practiced law, helped manage an international organization, raised 3 children, and founded, grew, and sold a small business. And I will admit to you right now, there is no way I would have been ready to be mayor without the benefit of my 8 years on the city council. Being mayor of Berkeley requires more than good ideas and good intentions. I think we all have that. I am the only candidate with the experience, the track record, and the fortitude to step into this big responsibility, and I am genuinely excited to be your next mayor.
Thank you. Over to Kate.
Well, thank you again to BDC for taking the time to hear from each and every one of us. I appreciate it very much. I want to say I never gave up on Berkeley. I did give up on the council because I found that it was dysfunctional, as Ms. Ishii mentioned. But we can fix this. We can come together and create actual solutions that work for the majority of our city. I've never either given up on the 99% of us either. We are not in a situation right now where we can afford to be fighting with each other when we know that we have large corporate interests that are trying to take over large swaths of our city and not pay for the services. An example is we provide commercial parking for free to large commercial interests while we tell our residents that they can't have parking. Those people are not charged, those companies are not charged for parking on our bonds, for example. That's an example where we, the taxpayers, are paying when companies should be stepping up. This is why I am endorsed by 350 Bay Area, the National Union of Healthcare Workers, SEIU, Unite Here, the United Auto Workers, the John George and Wellstone Clubs, the California Renters Caucus, 350 Bay Area, as I already mentioned, Evolve, which works on Prop 13 reform, and Our Revolution East Bay. Berkeley is changing incredibly, and I represented the part of the city that is changing the most and was able to incorporate that change and make a real difference in how our city runs. I look forward to the city of the future that will not be like it was in 1980, just like 1980 wasn't like 1930. We have to change, but we have to do it with sensitivity to the people that live here now and the people who are coming in the future. And I look forward to that challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to all three mayoral candidates. That concludes the mayoral portion of this forum.